Live from the Carl Chevrolet Studios in West Des Moines, this is Iowa Live.
Welcome back to the program, everybody, and time to say welcome back to Professor Jeff Stein. He is in Waterloo, where they are going to get twice as much snow as we are going to get today. You ready for all the snow there, Jeff?
Hey, thanks a lot, Lou. I appreciate that. But it's Iowa, it's February. You tell me we're going to get 3 inches of snow, you know, this is nothing. We're made of better stuff than that.
I think you're exactly right. But we visit with Professor Stein, and we learn about things that happened on this day in Iowa history. So let's find out about something significant that happened on this 24th day of February.
Well, it's one of the most significant U.S. Supreme Court cases concerning freedom of speech, and it had to do with the Des Moines Public School District. Let's set the table for you, Lou. It was in December of 1965 that a group of Des Moines students, 4 members of the Tinker family, along with their friend, Christopher Eckhart, well, they decided to wear black armbands to school one day to protest the Vietnam War. School officials learned of the plan and implemented a new policy, saying anyone wearing an armband would have to remove it or else face suspension from school. Siblings John and Mary Beth Tinker, as well as Christopher Eckhart, wore the armbands anyway, and true to their promise, the school suspended them.
So what were the issues that led to these rules being put in place?
Well, the idea was they did not want to have protests against the Vietnam War in school because, the school said, of fear that it might upset some students who might have had a sibling or parent serving in Vietnam. In other words, they wanted to limit the political speech because of the fear of a disruption. Well, that disruption of the school day is something that the Iowa Civil Liberties Union believed was not a valid reason. They thought that putting the rule in was a violation of the students' right to free speech, so they helped these families file a lawsuit against the school. That case made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and it became a landmark decision supporting free speech and students' rights. By a 7-2 vote, not terribly close, the justices ruled that the First Amendment does apply to public schools because they're operated by governments. And therefore, administrators would have to show valid reasons for stifling speech, such as a true fear of physical violence or of classroom disruption that might result.
And this was one of those rulings that had some really memorable language, didn't it?
In legendary language, we've all heard it, but we may not know where it came from. The court wrote, quoting now, "It can hardly be argued that either students or teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate." It's a phrase we've heard now for a half century. And it was a group of Des Moines students wearing simple armbands to protest a war, as they made history in advancing the cause of free speech in this country. And that was when the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a decision in the Tinker versus Des Moines Schools case, and it happened on this date in 1969.
Wow, and I'm sure people are familiar with that language that you just recited here, and I bet you're exactly right. They didn't realize it stemmed from something that occurred here in Des Moines. That's why we love the Iowa Almanac, because we learn these tidbits like that.
And again, when you hear about protests against the Vietnam War, you think of big college campuses.
Yeah.
Well, it just takes a very few high school students in the heart of Iowa to make law in this country that we follow today.
Yeah, one of the places I worked at a long time ago had a disruption in the workplace, and there was an individual that wore an armband like that, and it was frowned upon to the point where they weren't just suspended, they no longer were employed. So yeah, that does still have some weight. People still remember what happened, don't they?
Sure, and there's a difference between a private employer and a public school because, again, the First Amendment applies to government action. Doesn't apply to a private school, doesn't apply to a private business. But that's where some of the nuances come into play.
All right, so people want to go back and revisit what we just talked about. Get the language that you just talked about so you can talk about it amongst your friends. What's the best thing they could do, the easiest thing that they can do?
Well, just go to iowaalmanac.com. We post a fresh story every weekday morning, iowaalmanac.com, and you can follow us on the socials at Iowa Almanac on Twitter, Gitter, Parler, and Instagram, Lou.
All right, pal. Now you go get your snowblower fired up, get ready for the onslaught, and then we will talk to you next time, buddy.
All right, take care, Lou.
All right, bye now. All right, let's talk about some of the things that we are celebrating today. It's Fat Thursday, folks, the Thursday before Ash Wednesday. In Greece, this is huge, by the way. This is where they grill meats today. So even if it's snowing a little bit, go out and do a little bit of grilling today. Today is the Great American Spit Out. This is just raising the awareness of harmful effects of smokeless tobacco. Trading Card Day, World Bartender Day, and when you're thanking your bartender, tell them, hey, pass the tortilla chips this way, please, because it's National Tortilla Chip Day as well.